Welcome to The Fourth Bottom Line, the podcast where we meet people from business, charities and politics who are a force for good. In each episode, I talk to my guests about their inner side and how their internal changes have led to their outer success stories. We talk about the failures, spirituality and sometimes the painful experiences that have made them the unique individuals they are today. The main aim being for us to learn from and be inspired by them for our own lives. So, if you desire change in yourself and the world around you, do keep listening. And please remember to hit subscribe on your podcast platform of choice to make sure you never miss an episode. Hello, my name is Paul Hargreaves. I'm the founder and Chief Empowerment Officer of Cotswold Fair and Flourish, two businesses that put people and planet before profit. In 2015, we became one of the first B Corps in the UK, and I've written two books, Forces for Good and The Fourth Bottom Line. I'm passionate about changing the world for better and realised many years ago that to do this, we must also change ourselves. The outer impact of people, planet and profit has to be mirrored by an inner change, and that's what I call my fourth bottom line.
Well, there's a view that people's drive for money is just a substitute for love. And we could get into a whole track. There's a guy I know who's done a lot of work on money who says it's just people striving to get more love.
Yeah. And roughly what age were you when you had "is this it" moment?
Oh, early 40s probably.
So it's kind of
around the time when I had the midlife crisis that I same sort of time where I was thinking about the SRCG, the consulting company. Am I going to do this for the rest of my days?
Yeah.
Really? This? So it was all around the same time, I guess. There was that moment. Classic midlife crisis.
Yes.
And the joke is that people normally buy a Porsche or TVR, but I went and bought a couple of supermarkets.
My guest today is Andrew Thornton. Andrew, welcome to The Fourth Bottom Line.
Hello, Paul. It's nice to see you.
Andrew's had a stellar career in the food retail sector, starting at Mars, with many of his peers going on to run major retailers. He later started a boutique consulting firm, which became a global advisor in advising the convenience retail market, such as M&S, Spar, Sainsbury's and Musgrave, to name a few. He was described as someone who was always at the forefront of retail thinking. And I know that's true from my experience of him. In 2006, Andrew became a shopkeeper himself, buying two Budgens franchise in North London and transformed these into the community supermarket who really care about people and planet. As a result of the work done in removing plastic from the stores, Tesco's CEO at the time, Sir Dave Lewis, said that Andrew had changed the relationship between supermarkets and plastic globally, which is pretty impressive for two shops in North London. Now, having sold Thornton's Budgens, Andrew has been engaged in putting the heart back into business through setting up a fellow B Corp, Heart in Business. And we at Cotswold Fair and Flourish have benefited a huge amount from the work done by Andrew and his partner Eudora, who's also a partner in that business. I also heard in my research that Andrew was a child model and that he used to be a petrol head, owning a TVR, but now prefers to ride around on a bicycle.
I can't deny any of that, Paul. No.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it. So we'll talk about the change from the petrol head to the bicycle a bit later on. But the child model thing, I didn't expect that. Tell me a bit about that.
One of the great gifts my parents gave me was my dad was transferred to work in Amsterdam. So he was working for an Irish food company and we lived there for a couple of years and I was at the international school and I happened to be, one of my jobs was I was a milk boy or something. So I was the one who had to take the crates from where the milkman left it and drop it around to each of the classrooms. And somewhere in that process there was a scout looking for a child model in the building.
Not for Milky Bar.
Not for Milky Bar, no. It was for clothing, actually. And so they liked the look of me. So I got recruited. I did a KLM advert. I did some clothing adverts. The main thing I remember is I got a chopper bike with the proceeds.
Wow.
For one of the other one, I was paid in clothes, which really, as you can imagine, I would think I was 10 or 11 at the time. It really wasn't that exciting to have these sort of... But I still do. I should have brought it along. I still have a picture in a Dutch magazine of me with, believe it or not, quite long hair. Sort of in this scene, family scene, where I'm, the child of a group of other people, two other models.
So how long were you living in Amsterdam as a...
2 years.
Okay.
It was fabulous.
And then back to Ireland.
Back to Ireland, yeah. And I'm sure we'll touch on, my view on Catholic Ireland and all that, but being in Catholic Irish schools and then to go to Amsterdam and go to the American school, it was just like a breath of fresh air.
And what age were you there?
9 to 11. So
Okay.
I absolutely loved it. And I think it installed in me a sort of a love of travel. And also because we moved around quite a bit. And it's one of the things that when I got the job at Mars, they told me afterwards, one of the key tick boxes for me was I'd moved around so much.
Right.
So they like flexible people.
Okay.
If you were born and raised and you still live in the same town as you were born in,
Right.
then
Too narrow-minded.
you're not likely to get a job at Mars. Basically,
Interesting.
no. Yeah.
Because, I mentioned in the introduction, there was an incredible number of amazing people that
Yes.
seemed to emerge at Mars around the time you were there.
Yeah, I know everybody ended up in retail.
Yeah.
It's quite
So
bizarre.
they are extraordinary people. So what was going on? Is it that's just a coincidence?
There was something
or
in the
was it-
water in Slough, Paul.
Really?
Something
Okay.
strange. Certainly when I was at university, if you wanted to go into the FMCG, Mars was the place. I think even, and P&Gers would disagree, but, it was the place to go.
And that was for cultural reasons or probably,
Yeah. I mean, Mars runs on 5 principles, which were defined by the Forrest Mars Senior originally, and really lived. Freedom, mutuality were the 2 I both remembered. And I became a manager at the age of 23 at a department of 7 or 8 people, all of whom were older than me. And basically my boss said, this is what the objectives are. Just get on and do it. If you need, I'm here. But we were just given total and utter freedom to deliver what we were supposed to deliver.
So they were ahead of their time, really, weren't they, in that
Oh, yeah.
respect? Most people probably, I don't know, you do tell me, but I think most companies probably didn't have articulated their values at that point.
But there is, in writing our book, Putting the Heart Back into Business, which of course I had to plug, I end up interviewing a lady called Aileen Richards, who ended up being head of P&O, as Mars called it, People and Organisation for Mars. And she said that there was a letter written by Forrest Mars Senior in 1942 that says the purpose of Mars Company is about enhancing the lives of all its stakeholders. 1942.
Well,
So
yes.
very enlightened. And they paid really well. So they just attracted really talented people. So I worked for Alan Leighton. I sat in a desk next to Justin King, opposite Richard Baker, and so on.
So let's go back to your childhood. It's an obvious thing to say, but a lot of people end up, they are formed by their childhood to a greater or lesser extent, for good and for bad as well, actually. So what are the positive values that came out of your upbringing in Ireland, first of all?
Well, the thing about Ireland is it's an extraordinary place in so many ways. It's, if you look at the culture, you look at the creativity, you look at the musicians and authors and poets, disproportionately, we're massively overrepresented in that whole arena. And it's very entrepreneurial as a country. We're sort of little nothing on the side of Europe. So there's no danger of being full of pretension and getting, how do I say this politely, getting too big for one's boots that other countries, for example, not thinking of anybody in particular, but might actually
might
be
their next door neighbours.
Yeah. So there's that extraordinary life and passion and friendliness, and then the other hand, there was a whole influence of the Catholic Church, which really repressed Ireland, and How did that happen? Who knows? But I mean, Ireland was at war, basically. We were being invaded, or we were at war with each other for most of Ireland's existence. And then there was that little window post-independence where Ireland was free and no one was telling us what to do. And the Catholic Church sort of slipped in and kind of decided that was a little window there. So, and my secondary school, run by Catholic priests, who I subsequently know were abusing my classmates, sexually abusing my classmates. Now, I wasn't sexually abused, but I grew up in an environment where they were telling us that sex was dirty and stuff like that, but the very same priests were actually sexually abusing boys in the school. So that has an impact. It has to have an impact.
Did you have any inkling at the time? Or?
A friend of mine was on the touch of it, so yes, on the edge. Sure, I had a bit of an inkling. But I found that more later after I'd left, really. But there were some of them were physically so cruel. I remember being, whipped with the leather, quite often. For trivial things.
I mean, how common was this in Ireland?
I think it was very common. It was probably common here in terms of the physical side of things. But it's just the hypocrisy, the whole thing. And the whole country was run by the priests. And, I could fill the whole podcast talking about it, which I don't think that's going to actually help. But it's the thing, one of my big things is about fairness and about abuse of power. And the reason I was drawn to putting the heart back into business was about countering the abuse of power. And I think there's quite a parallel between how many businesses run and how a church abused their power. So, I certainly believe, and I know you do, that one's purpose and what one is drawn to in life does tend to come from your childhood trauma.
Yeah.
So,
and how has that? We will move on from this, but how has that impacted you personally, being in a school like that, and how did it impact you when you found out about it several years later?
I was really angry, actually. And it just messes with your values and the whole thing. There's just a whole confusion, in terms of relationships and sex and all sorts of stuff like that. It's just deeply, so I've done quite a bit of personal work in terms of therapeutic and stuff like that and sort of dealing with it and processing it.
I want to come back to the, change. Obviously, you're someone who has gone through a lot of change. We'll come on to that a bit later. Just before we move on from your childhood, though, what the kind of I'd forgotten your dad was actually in the food sector as well. What you're someone that's achieved a lot in their life. What some of that stuff must have come from your mum and dad. I mean, I learned from a business point of view. I learned a lot from my dad. He's very structured. He's very organised. He's very efficient. Yeah. Very like me, actually. He doesn't drop the ball on stuff. And I remember one of the things he said to me very early on is about stuff in business relationships is never say anything to someone. Never say something to someone else you wouldn't say to the person directly themselves. And I remember him saying that to me right when I started my career, and it stuck with me. And there were times, I'm sure, where I forgot about that and then remembered later on. And there was this very much sort of a family attitude of get on, get and do stuff. My mother raised 4 children. We went to live in Holland. My dad was travelling away. So she was juggling an awful lot of stuff. And then I think there was a point when I was maybe 18 or so, but she was like seeing what was, she hadn't worked. So she set up a restaurant with some other people, which, I think my younger brother may have been impacted a bit because he was still at school when that happened. But I think everybody was very supportive of it. But she had this sort of entrepreneurial thing as well. So she went on and kind of did something rather than just say, oh, well, I'm just going to. And your parents, are they proud of what you've achieved?
Yeah. Yes, they are. I know they are.
Who was the first person that believed in you? Because I know you reasonably well. You're quite confident, not afraid to speak your mind. And I think that inner confidence, I'd be interested to know where that comes from.
Gosh, I don't know. Probably my parents, I suppose. They certainly made sure I got a really good education and was set up so I did the right, they were very supportive in doing a good degree and the right degree and the right university, which, was my stepping stone to going to Mars and on from there. So, and a very close relationship with my maternal grandfather as well. Okay. He was really, him and I were very close, and he used to, I was a train spotter when I was a kid. I mean, really? I had a model railway and everything.
A brave admission.
Yeah. But him and I built it basically from, so he was very, my father would totally admit that he was not a handyman. That wasn't his thing. So him and I were very close, my grandfather and I. And so I think he also, I would have got confidence from him. And yeah.
And if you could go back in time and give your younger self, whatever age, teenager, 18 maybe, some advice now, what would it be?
Oh, it would be trust your intuition. So I think I've really, really, in the last little while, got to know that when I feel something in my gut, there's something real. And I think for years I didn't really properly listen. And there are certain times when after God, I had a bit of a hunch about that, but I kind of ignored it. Because you're trained, particularly in the business world, it's all about analysis and data.
Yeah.
And, feelings are for, that's for the fairies sort of thing. So, yeah, I think that's probably the thing.
Let's dig into that a bit, actually, because one thing I've known you, trying to work it out, about 8 years, I think.
Sounds about right.
So I've known you kind of post-transformation, I think. It seems like, just from talking to someone that knew you before that you were quite different in your kind of 20s and 30s, fast cars. Yeah, he said your TVR, you couldn't use the clutch properly, actually, but I don't know about that. But
well, it didn't work probably. Anything else, yes.
But, yeah, I mean, I think maybe money was more important to you then, and very career-driven. I don't know, you tell me. But, it does seem like you've changed a lot since those early days. I guess we all do to some degree. But talk to me about the change.
Well, I mean, they do say that the Indian view on life is you've got different stages, and there's a stage when you're in your 20s and 30s. Your 20s, you're forming a career. 30s, you start having children. Then you get into the more self-actualization stage of life. I think I had the message. I certainly was really keen, like so many men, to prove myself to my father. And him and I have talked about it, and he's always said, well, I've always been proud of you, so you didn't need to. But there probably was a bit of me driving. And it's an unconscious piece. I mean, the whole change has been about being more conscious and more aware of what drives me. So it probably was unconscious, and yes, it's what you did. You had a career. Yeah.
Yes, I think you're spot on. I think the same was true for me. I probably didn't feel that accepted by my dad, who was a surgeon. He probably felt that I was never quite as good as he was. He probably didn't think that, but that was the perception.
Well, I know my dad didn't think that at all, but it was my perception.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even I was thinking about it. I just look back afterwards and think I was very... my dad had two things, sport and business. And I was rubbish at sport. And my sister became a professional tennis player and became the Irish #1 tennis player. So I think probably there was a bit of me that needed to prove myself to him in the other field, which I could excel at. With tennis, I was 8 and she was 6 when she first beat me, and that was the end of my tennis playing. Because we're all a bit competitive in our family. Yes, I think it was all in my own head, if you want. And I think this intuition, there was a piece about what you should do. This is what one should do, is, have a good career, make good money, provide for your family, all that sort of stuff, which I now look back and think, actually, I don't know if that served me Well, it was what it was.
Well, there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. It's just you talked about your, from when I've known you, your drive to reverse unfairness has been very evident. And maybe that was still there, you tell me, but when it was probably still there but slightly suppressed, possibly, when you were...
Well, I do remember in the consulting days always being keen for profit shares and for people to be more involved. And I think I was probably... My partners were less keen on that whole idea. And that we should support charities and so on. And I was in a bit of a minority in that field. So there was a bit of it there.
So was there arguments then?
I wouldn't say arguments. I probably didn't push it. I could have pushed it harder and probably didn't. Yeah, because I've always believed, and one of the things I think at the consulting firm we were pretty good at was basically I always believed that, I always said to people, if you want to earn money, then you just need to deliver more. And I don't mean in terms of hours worked, but if you're valuable and you can help create value on projects, then you should be paid accordingly.
So you talked about intuition. Is that, how have you developed that? Because presumably your advice to yourself was you hadn't probably done enough of it in your early life. How have you cultivated that?
I think through awareness. So I think the key, the doorway to everything is awareness.
So tell me about that. I mean, how do you work on your awareness?
By meditating, by creating space in life, by not being wall-to-wall busy. I mean, in the consulting company, my diary was pretty crazy.
How many hours a week were you doing?
I mean, I know I've never worked stupid hours.
Right.
But I'm very efficient. And I think you spoke to Mike Hedges. I mean, that's the one thing very touching moment recently. He said, I meant to thank you. How, I learned that from you. And Mike's been really successful. Yeah. And he certainly claimed that I taught him this whole efficiency piece. But I would work really, really intensely. And that's okay. But if there's no reflection time, then... So now I will take more reflection time.
So what prompted that change? Was there some crisis or...?
Well, I went from running the consulting firm, selling out, buying Thornton's Budgeons, buying the stores, creating Thornton's Budgeons, getting divorced. And I think that was quite a big moment. And I got into a different world and I started to meet people who were more into awareness, who were meditating, who were doing therapy, who were doing personal development workshops, who were going on leadership walks like the one we went on in India. And I started to see, this is quite interesting. When I do that, I kind of learn more about myself and I feel more fulfilled and I feel happier because I'm having less noise going on in my head.
But there must have been something within you. I mean, some people... I still do. I think we are very woo-woo and not going to go anywhere near that. There must have been something in you that was kind of craving more, I guess, which is what attracted you. Yeah. So what was it you were dissatisfied about?
I remember sitting, we when I had the consulting company, we were doing really, really well. We had a flat in London, we had a cottage down in Sussex. I remember sitting down there one Sunday afternoon and the sun was shining and I'm sitting in the garden thinking, is this it? Yeah. Is this? I mean, materially, I was incredibly fortunate. Yeah. I probably had the TVR sort of limping around the driveway because it was always breaking down. A lovely flat in London, 2 great kids, a house by the sea, but it was material stuff. And the kids obviously weren't, but the rest of it was material stuff. And that actually isn't the source of happiness, really.
People still think it is, though, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a view that people's drive for money is just a substitute for love. And we could get into a whole track. There's a guy I know who's done a lot of work on money who says it's just people striving to get more love.
Yeah. And roughly what age were you when you had "is this it" moment?
Early 40s probably.
So it's kind of...
Around the time when I had the midlife crisis that same sort of time where I was thinking about the SRCG, the consulting company. Am I going to do this for the rest of my days?
Yeah.
Really? So it was all around the same time, I guess. There was that moment. Classic midlife crisis.
Yes,
and the joke is that people normally buy a Porsche or a TVR, but I went and bought a couple of supermarkets.
You'd already got the TVR. So.
Well, it was probably gone at that stage, yes.
Right. So, yes, and the midlife crisis is a cliche, but there is a point at which people start to think about the rest of their lives. They think about the probably first half of their life, and they're moving to the second half of their life. And people react in different ways to that, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably talked to other people who've probably not reacted in a positive way and have got into depression and stuff like that. So I guess there's probably people who are maybe at that point in their lives. I know, I do know some people who've listened to this who've changed what they're doing because of what people have said on this show. So what advice would you give them if they're sitting listening to this now and they're feeling dissatisfied with their career and their job and their life? How would you advise them?
Change. So it's like the only person who has agency on our life is ourselves. So the only person who can impact how I am in the world is me. So I would say to anybody who feels dissatisfied, and I've said this many times before in terms of work, if you're unhappy at work, we spend so much of our non-sleeping time at work. If that's unhappy, it's really hard to imagine how life can be fulfilling. I would say I was unhappy for the last year, 18 months in the consulting company, because but it was nothing to do with the company. It was nothing to do with the other people. It was to do with me. It wasn't where I wanted to be. So I would say if you're unhappy, there's lots of much, much more companies with, like Cotswold Fair, B Corps, purposeful companies. Because most people are unhappy because they have, when you read the studies, it's always things like, I'm not respected, I don't get on with my boss, I'm treated badly, my work isn't valued, I'm not appreciated. It's rarely about money. I mean, money never makes the top 3 reasons why people change jobs or are dissatisfied. So if you're in one of those places, then go work somewhere else, is what I would say. And if you're in a marriage like that, then go somewhere else. I mean, or if, whatever situation one can change. It is possible. And I know people sort of often say, but I've got a mortgage to pay and I've got this to do. I had that one. And my moment with leaving SRCG was somebody because how do you, when you're a full-on job like that, then leave and then start something new? Because you can't do both. Yeah. And somebody just helped me see that because we had done quite well, I had quite a bit of property and I could do some remortgaging. So I could afford not to earn any income for a couple of years, which gave me the breathing space to go into a new place. Yeah, so there's always a way forward.
Yes, I mean, that's obviously a privilege if you're in that position, but not everyone is.
Yeah, I still think there's always ways forward, though. It's very easy to sit in a victim mode and say this is unfair and this is not right and blah, 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 blah. I can't do anything about it. I'm trapped and so on and so forth.
Yes. And yes, I mean, that's we talked about that on the episode with Paul McGee. So that's what he talks about, not being a victim. And he also talks about ditch Doris Day, which by what he means, she sang the song Que Sera, Sera, whatever will be, will be. No. You can actually change your future, but people get trapped, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's sad. And then they, soldier on, take early retirement and go and play golf, and they get bored of that.
My great-uncle, John, fascinating guy, he worked for the Irish Turf Board in Amona, which was known in those days as the Board of Moaners. And he was a civil servant and he hated his job, but he was a scratch golfer. He spent every day of his life looking forward to retirement so he could play golf every day. And he had a massive heart attack about 2 days after he retired. He never played golf again. So that's just, don't put things off. When this happens, I'll do that. If you want to do something, do it now and find a way. And it's amazing when you decide to want to do something, how the universe will come in behind you. I mean, it sounds woo-woo and so on, but I let go of something to do with work fairly recently, and as soon as I did that, a whole load of new stuff opened up.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about, difficult times, which I know you have had and I've had. How much of those difficult times formed you, and how have they changed you?
Hugely, yeah. I mean, the last 6, 7, 8 months has been the most challenging, probably, of my life. So I was involved in an interesting project to help save the rainforest in Bolivia, which won't bore. Well, you know some of the details, but there were some not such good things happened, and it was really, I put a lot of trust in people who basically betrayed that trust, and it felt to me, I had spent my whole career working to this moment, and then suddenly I was shafted, basically. So it was like pull underneath me, and about 3 or 4 weeks after that, my partner Eudora, who you mentioned, had realised that her cancer had returned and she was going to have to do, the chemotherapy. So she was very, very unwell. So we were dealing with, as a family, 2 hugely traumatic experiences, right bang, poof, on top of each other. And it certainly changed how I see life.
I mean, how do you get through those times without just getting really angry about it? Or maybe you did get angry.
I got angry about the work thing, yeah. And I was in Bolivia for a chunk of it on my own. But I spoke to you on the phone. I spoke to various other people who I care about and who care about me. And Eudora was there for some of it, and when she wasn't there, I spoke to her on the phone. And just, you had really amazing friends and people who supported me to just to listen to me, to hear me and help me work through what was going on. And with Eudora, it was like I just needed to be there for her because it was really, really tough. And it's just about being present with what is, rather than getting caught up about what if and victims and all that stuff, because it doesn't actually help. But it's certainly, as a family, we are, myself, Eudora, and Anna, my daughter, we're just much stronger as a result of that. My own little family is, I've got 2 older sons as well. They're doing their own thing a bit more now. But our little, day-to-day unit that we live in is much stronger as a result of what we've been through.
But people, run away from painful times, don't they? But I'm a great believer that it's these difficult times that form us into be able to express ourselves more in the future.
Yeah.
The wounded healer is one way of putting it, or do you know the Japanese art of kintsugi?
Tell me
When
more.
I think originally it was broken pot, but they put them all back together, but the gold in the cracks, they fill them with gold.
Ah, yes.
And now I think it's, they deliberately break the pot and then...
Yeah.
And everyone is different, but I think it's a wonderful metaphor. In our brokenness is the gold.
Yeah.
And it's through... I know it's true for me that all the crap I've been through, difficult times, again, for me, it was probably between 40 and 50 primarily, 40, 45, that I know that I'm a different person now because of those times, and I'm more able to give more to other people because of the difficult times I've had. Some people I've had on this podcast have been through far more trying times than me, but yeah.
And there were other, breakup of marriage, all that, the implications of that. That happened more like in my 40s, and that was the start of my becoming more aware of who I am, what I stand for.
So how has your reaction to suffering changed then? I know for me, I used to hate it, and it's, again, not saying I enjoy it when things go wrong, but I probably have a greater sense now that some good will come out of it, whereas in the past, I thought, shit, I don't want to get out of here as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do, is it? But
yeah. I think that you can't in any way control what life throws at you, but you can control how you respond to it. And that, to me, is the absolute key. So what's happened over the last 7-8 months?
Yeah.
What happened in Bolivia, I couldn't control that.
No.
What happened with Eudora's cancer, I couldn't control that. But how I and we responded to that, absolutely. And I think there's a sense in these moments, I find it, I can get quicker to there's some reason for this. Look, there'll be something good coming out of this. Be with it, rather than getting stuck in the pain of it and this sort of, and this, the victim stuff, it's not fair, blah, 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 all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that takes a few experiences to be able to do that, though. It's not easy. I want to get on to the emotional side, particularly in the business context, because I know quite a lot of what you do with Heart in Business is helping people express their emotions and being more real in the workplace. I mean, I think things have moved on, fortunately, but certainly in the past, people were encouraged not to show their emotions at work.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to you about some of the benefits you've seen of people's emotions being released in the workplace.
Oh, I don't even know where to start with that. Certainly in the supermarket, we got to a point. And the start for all this is psychological safety. So, and what that means is you have to create a work or a home or any environment where people feel safe to share what's going on for them. And that takes a long time to build. So gradually over years in Thornton's Budgeons, we created safety. People realised, it's okay. I'm not going to get my head bitten off, or I'm not going to have it used against me, because that's the definition of psychological safety. It won't be used against you. I remember relatively early days, we had a thing called the Team Forum, which is a group of different people from different parts of the business who met with me once a month to just discuss stuff. So it was outside of the normal hierarchy. And we were sitting around, we were doing a check-in, just how people are. And I started by saying that I felt really shit today. And in fact, if I hadn't had this meeting, I probably would like to have put the covers over my head and stayed in bed. And Nicola was going next to me, we can say things like that, because I felt like that this morning.
But some people, if you were, obviously you were the leader, some people would see that as a sign of weakness. So why is it not a sign of weakness?
Because they saw it was genuine, and it was that actually it's okay to, because we're not all perfect all the time. And what happened in that group was suddenly the safety of the group dramatically, so the conversations we had and the honesty dramatically improved, because people saw that I, as the boss, was willing to be vulnerable and share something about me that we normally wouldn't do. And that encouraged them. So Nicole did the same thing. And then somebody else did the same thing. And that's what happens over time. Yeah. And I didn't use the information Nicole shared against her in the future. Therefore, she felt safer. And this is a gradual process of happening, that people over time then feel, this is okay. It's actually safe to share what's really going on. Because otherwise you're in a pretend bubble of everything's fine, and then everything explodes and there's a big sort of drama, which is nothing to do with what happened. It's because there's a whole load of unexpressed emotions, which are then triggered by the fact that someone, took your paperclip.
What other benefits are there for creating a workplace where emotions are able to be expressed?
Well, you access the full, what's the word? Everything of somebody rather than only part of them.
Potential.
Potential, yeah. If you have to leave a whole bunch of yourself at home because it's not safe to bring it in, then you don't access that. And emotions and creativity are very strongly linked. So, you mentioned plastic free earlier. I mean, what we achieved was only achievable because of the way we ran the business. So in 10 weeks, we launched 1,800 plastic-free lines that, as Dave Lewis said, did transform things. And that's because people were committed, but also they were creative. And because they could share their emotions, then they accessed their creativity. And that meant that when we hit blocks, then people got over the blocks, rather than saying, it just can't be done, or this is too difficult, or whatever.
Are there any downsides to people maybe crying in the workplace?
Well, only if someone abuses that, and then trust is broken. And if there's somebody, and if there are people in a business, if there's somebody quite senior in a business who is against the grain, and you and I've talked about this before, then that does hold back the whole organisation. But if you can get it as a culture led from the top, then I don't think there are. And of course, you don't want people out in the shop floor of the supermarket sobbing away and having all that sort of stuff. It's there's privacy and there's discretion, and yes, people did cry in the business, but it was done in private, in a private place, witnessed by 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the people. Not a big, huge public drama.
Have you been the kind of, because a lot of men, particularly men, more so, lock up their emotions. So have you always been quite free emotionally, would you say, or is that something you've had to develop?
I've developed it, yeah.
And how have you done that? So
through awareness again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would have been focused, busy. When you're focused and busy all the time, then you don't really have time to be aware of your emotions. Diaries, meetings all the time, emails in between. I look at myself, and I remember we had a contract in Phoenix, Arizona, and myself and various colleagues used to travel over there quite a lot. And I'd get back there was a flight that arrived into Gatwick at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, and I'd get a local cab guy would pick me up and take me to the house in Sussex, and the family would come down. I remember always get into the back of the cab, plug my mobile phone into my computer so I could download my emails, so I could do any emails that came in while I was flying, so that they'd be done, so that on Monday morning I'd have a clear inbox. It's just like...
Yes, I mean, I know a lot of people who would do the same, even today.
Yeah, but today now it's so much simpler, because you can flick through on your phone, you can just see.
Yeah.
But this was the thing, you had to plug this thing in, and you had to get connections, and sitting in the back of a taxi, but I was sort of obsessive about it.
3:30 on a Friday afternoon, you should be able to leave it, whether today or
exactly,
even with the extra ease of doing it.
Yeah.
But now, of course, those kind of people would be logged onto the plane Wi-Fi, wouldn't they?
Yes, absolutely. So.
Well, that's one of the best things about plane journeys for me, is cutting off my communications. I absolutely love it. Is there an emotion you wished you had more of?
What, in the past?
No, now.
Now? Oh, I think the one I'm always looking for more of is joy. So, and I've got more and more joy in my life now. So, you never have too much joy and laughter and fun.
I want to talk a bit more about this intuition, but bigger than that, just because what you've just alluded to is you, in effect, correct me if I'm wrong, but you lived a lot of your life through your mind, which is one aspect of us, and most people are in their mind the whole time, and now you're more in other parts of your heart, emotions, soul, whatever you want to call it. How? I mean, you'll say it's your spiritual practices that help you do that, but for someone that knows that's their issue and they're always in their mind, constantly on, how would they start to be less in the mind and more in the other parts of them if they don't know how to meditate or whatever? What would you say to them?
Mindfulness is probably an easier path than meditation. Yoga, things like that. Physical exercise also, gets you a bit out of your head. So anything that can get you into your body is very helpful. I mean, it can be. Yeah, I think some of those things. It's what works for individual. What is it that? And one of the things I love to do is ski, and I know when I'm on the ski hill that I've got to focus on what I'm doing, otherwise I'll be on my arse on the ground.
Yes, I mean, my skiing is equally bad. I have to very much.
Well, no, my skiing is actually quite good, and therefore I will ski quite difficult stuff. But it keeps me out because I've got to be on the ball, because I'll ski pretty fast or difficult stuff, and therefore if I'm all thinking about stuff, then I won't be watching what I'm doing, and suddenly I'll I'll be on the ground.
Yes.
So that was one of the things, certainly long before I discovered meditation and things like that, that I found a brilliant way to get me out of my... Even though I didn't realise what I was doing, I now can see why, going skiing always just really helped transform me, because I was getting out of my head into my body.
And do you have a sense that there is something bigger than you out there?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that impact what you do and how you think?
Well, I think we're all connected. And I think there's this mistake that we have, that we're all separate. So, the sort of Donald Trump win-lose way of operating. If we're all separate, well then all that matters is me and my family. So therefore, if I have to kill you in the process, then so be it. But if we're all connected, then actually if I'm going to injure you, then I injure myself. So, so I do think there is we're all connected in some way or other to each other.
And I think that interdependence was something that probably became more obvious to people during COVID because something happened in China and suddenly, quite very quickly, the whole world was impacted. I think certainly for me that gave me a greater sense that my actions here in business, in life, actually do impact people in other parts of the world. In some ways we know, carbon, etc., but other ways we don't know.
Yeah.
And how does that change how you live your life, how you run, if you listen to this as a business leader, how does that impact how you run your business?
Well, everything you do has consequences. So the approach we took, I know you take in Cotswold Fair, is you're about taking care of all the stakeholders. So rather than just saying it's all about shareholders. So, if you work really well and you treat the people who you work with well and you respect them and honour them and give them a chance to express their whole creativity and so on, well, they're going to do a better job, surely.
Yeah.
If you look at suppliers, look in Thornton's Budgeons. There were loads of suppliers small startups and things that we really encouraged, and they were ever grateful. And were they great suppliers? Of course they were. They were better suppliers than... And of course, people like Unilever we were just nothing to people like that. But small suppliers who we had a connection with, the fact that they were always treated well, paid on time, given opportunities, meant they would have gone to the moon for us. And you just go through the community, you go through all the different stakeholders. And with the planet, I think the planet is a stakeholder. You can say, well, but I just think what goes round comes round. So, if you're just a shit to people and the planet, then it'll come and bite you in the arse. Excuse my expression.
Yes, and if you're good to the world, you might not see the benefit immediately, but you will at some point in the future.
Yeah. And it's all about the impact on others and what they can be inspired. So, yes, this heart approach, but doing it professionally, which Eudora and I were doing, and Eudora has now taken over doing, I realised wasn't my path, because as in running workshops like we did for you.
Yeah.
Because I realised that what my purpose is about, leading by example. It's not necessarily teaching other people to do stuff. So the things I'm doing now are much more about actually running real businesses, doing it for a way that's better for the planet and people. And then people see that, as they did at Thornton's Budgeons, which is how I met you, because you were a supplier of ours.
Yes.
And you had heard things and you thought, this looks interesting, I should come along and have a look. And we got to talking, and I shared about some of the workshops we were running for the team, and you were saying, oh, that sounds great. And I said, well, we're starting to run for other people, so shall we run some for you? And otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yes, and sadly, a lot of retailers aren't still doing what you were doing with those stores. They're still, in fact, I would say some of them have gone backwards in the last few years. Businesses generally, people are saying, well, we've got all these increased costs coming through. We can't, we can't be as good to people and do stuff for the planet like we were doing. What would you say to them?
I would say that's very short-sighted and very short-term. And I mean, one of the things that's really exciting is at the moment is the possibilities of technology and AI. I know lots of people are talking about it, but there are a number of things I'm working on, people I'm talking to at the moment, that are using AI to produce things that will lead to saving costs in terms of food manufacturing, which can then mean that you can actually have money to treat people properly, but also you can start to put healthier ingredients into products, because the age-old problem is that most healthier, better for you and better for the planet products are more expensive, and therefore it's very elitist and only a certain number of people can afford them. But if you can simultaneously be putting in ingredients that are better for you and taking costs out by reducing waste using AI, and you can produce something that tastes delicious but it's better for you but doesn't cost any more, then you start to... So I think that's a direction that you can start to look at.
Although there may be less people employed by the business, I suppose.
Well, in some cases, yes. But I was at a talk the other day talking about technology, using AI technology in farming. But the guy was saying, well, the trouble is the farmers don't have anybody to pick the crops because of that thing, that 6-letter word called Brexit. And therefore there isn't. It's not like you're taking any jobs away. A lot of these crops are going rotten because they're not actually being picked. So, and I think it's the application of this sort of stuff. But I think you can make short-term profits very easily by not investing in people, not investing in as a retailer in your stores. But it always comes back and bites you in the end. So, and the trouble with the way of measurement is it's all short-term. So, the CE doesn't give a toss because he's in 5 years' time when it comes back to bite you, they're not there.
Yeah.
So, and that's a big problem.
Although more and more people are choosing not to work for companies like that.
Correct.
So you're probably not going to be able to recruit anyone if you've changed tack.
That's right.
So
Yes.
that's probably been the biggest change over the last few years is that we, and I'm sure it was the case for you as well, that we attract better people to work for us because of what we stand for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And certainly it's not exclusive to the younger generations, but probably more so they're choosing to work for companies that are good. And so if you're heading in the wrong direction, maybe you won't get the talent you need to actually make profits after all. Yeah.
And I was at an event yesterday with one of my colleagues, and one of the working with a growing Irish food business and B Corp. And this is an event where you could meet buyers, and one of the buyers was, "Oh, and you're a B Corp, that's fantastic." So there was a big tick for her that we were a B Corp. So it's like immediately that, whereas a few years ago maybe that would have been, oh yeah, okay. But now it was like, yeah, that's a big tick, and we're vegan, great, so that's good for the planet. And she looked at the label, it's clean. There's no UPFs in it. That's another tick. Yeah. So there's a whole load of ticks that probably a few years ago would not have been on a retail buyer's checklist.
A good example of doing the right thing. Probably costs money, but more people are going to buy that product.
Yes,
and certainly in the larger, more and more in the larger, certainly for government, local tenders, government tenders, and some of the. Some national grocers are more looking at that stuff, aren't they? They're not, some of them aren't, but you could see now how you would get more business and make more profit by doing the right thing. Yeah,
and I think the big retailers in food are recognising the challenges with the UPFs. They're recognising the challenge with high fat, salt and sugar. They know that there's some big challenges and are really keen to do something different. So everybody's like, and I don't know, I walked in at the end of a skit on whatever the 6:30 Radio 4 comedy show was yesterday, and it was about UPFs. I mean, talking about ultra-processed foods on comedy now, that's it's at that level.
I heard a really scary stat the other day, that this worldwide, not just Western Hemisphere countries, that 70% of the world will be, if we carry on as we are, will be obese by the year 2050 or 2040.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
As they adopt Western ways.
Yeah.
That's
exactly. When you think of Asia and Africa, It's scary.
Yes, it is.
Something has to happen. How do you think you have changed in the last 5 to 10 years?
I'm just more me. If that is maybe that's not a good thing. I think it is.
What is you?
I think it is.
Who are you? Andrew Thornton.
Gosh, that's a tricky question.
It's sometimes a question that, if I'm feeling slightly provocative, because I hate, if you're at a social event with people who you don't know, and it's, what do you do? I get really bored with that. So I just say, who are you? Get a load of blank faces normally.
Who am I? I suppose I'm a bit of a change agent. So I'm someone who can initiate change. I believe everybody has a purpose in life, and I'm here to make changes, probably in the food industry.
Well, you have been doing that.
Yeah,
I mean, the stuff I found out about you from before I knew you, that you were pioneers of category management.
Absolutely,
I never knew that.
Yeah.
So you've been instigating change in all sorts of different areas.
Yeah. I suppose I have a low boredom threshold. Less so than I used to. So I'm a change agent, and I do care about people and life and the planet. And also like to have fun. And that's, I think, the thing I've got more into more recently is actually, you said at the beginning of this, it's just relax, we're going to have fun and so on. And that's what's kind of important. Life can be all too serious and worthy and all that stuff. And I think people also get more done when you're having fun. It's one of your values at Cotswold Fair, isn't it?
Yeah,
have fun, get more done or something.
Yeah,
so you're impressed by that I know one of your values.
Yeah, well, you helped us come up with them, I think.
Yeah, still to remember, though, after all those years. That's quite something.
Yes, and it is the one that people, if you ask them which is your favourite value, that's the one that gets the most, because it's having fun attracts, not only it's good for the people there, it attracts other people in, whether they're customers, suppliers, other new people coming in. So yeah, goodness me, if we can't have fun, what else will stay in bed in the morning?
Yeah, and there's something, Paul, about vulnerability as well. To be able to be vulnerable with another and to really listen to someone and have them listen to you. So I know that when I've gone through the challenges over the last little while, the good friends and family who've just listened to me, that's really, really valuable, because we're not great at listening.
No.
Humans, by and large.
No, because we're in our minds and thinking of the
Correct.
next thing we've got to do all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the people who I found the most supportive on my sort of South American adventures were the people who just could really listen.
What do you think you'll be doing in 5 years' time?
I am on this mission to how do we produce more delicious, healthier, affordable food. So I've got a number of different companies I'm working with, bringing different people together. So I think I'll probably be still involved in that in some shape or form.
Someone I talked to actually was very, very excited. It's almost like they felt like all the stuff you've been through recently and further ago, there was a blank sheet of paper, and they were very excited about what was next. I mean, some people are thinking of winding down at, I'll say, our ages. You're slightly older than me, I think, but
I am, yes.
But I don't get that.
No,
do you?
No. I mean, what I want to do, and I do more, is choose what I want to do. Right now, I've never been busier than I've ever in my life, I think. And as time goes on, I will choose who I want to work with, what I want to do, and have more space, not at this exact moment in time. And Eudora and I will work together again.
Yeah.
We're doing that less now, but we will do it. There's a point in time where we work together with people, but more in a private capacity, I think, when I'm probably a little further down the track. But
So we're coming to the end of our time together, and there's some questions that I ask all my guests. Hopefully you've had time to prepare some answers. One piece of advice that you wish you had when you were starting out that you didn't?
follow your intuition. Absolutely. Yeah.
Go with your gut.
Go with your gut, yeah. And make sure you allow yourself the time and space to be able to hear your gut.
Yeah. And a piece of advice that you did have, but wasn't very good advice, you've ignored it.
Well, it was very good advice, but I still ignored it. So very early in Mars, I was working for a guy called Ford Ennals, and anybody who was at Mars at the time would know Ford. He was a fabulous guy. And I think we'd done a presentation to a new marketing director, and he said, you know, Andrew, you don't have to tell them everything you know. Because I was talk. And he gave an example to our colleague Stephen, who was always very considered and very measured, and he would ponder before answering. So I remembered, but I didn't follow it for quite a long time. I think I do a little bit. So speak less,
Yes,
listen more.
It's the old 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Exactly.
Use them in that proportion.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. And you've read, I think, my book, Fourth Bottom Line, which has 50 different characteristics of good leadership. And I've asked you to choose one that you're particularly working on at the moment. Which would that be?
Well, I was going through the list thinking, yeah, that could be that. And when I hit the one, it was straight away silence. So it's connected to the other point I said.
It's amazing, actually. That is a common choice. I've noticed more people want more silence. What's the benefits of silence, just to reaffirm what you said earlier, really?
The benefits of just being quiet and still. But also silence in the not speaking. So listening. So not feeling I have to figure out what I'm going to say next, butt in. Just to be totally listen to someone and to be really present with them I find it very restful, actually. It slows my mind, my busy mind. I've got a very busy mind, so it slows it down.
Do you find you have to go somewhere special to do that, or like out in nature or something like that?
I've got a tree on Hampstead Heath around the corner from me that I go to, but I can also be with the tree elsewhere. So nature absolutely is the doorway for me to slowing down, to quietness. I don't actually have to be in it to do it.
I can feel the benefits just with you speaking about that tree. I want to go and sit under it now. But,
well, next time you come, I'll show it to you.
Yeah. Good. Well, thanks so much we covered a lot of ground there. Thank you for your openness and honesty, and the fun bits and the less fun bits have come through in this conversation. You have been a massive inspiration to many retailers. I know you've certainly been an inspiration to us as a business, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
Thank you, Paul. I've loved the conversation. I can't believe an hour has passed, or whatever length of time it is. And yeah, thank you.
Good. Well, thanks for coming on the Fourth Bottom Line.
Thanks, Paul.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Fourth Bottom Line. Please hit subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode, and do leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to learn more about my work, follow me on LinkedIn, visit my website paulhargreaves.co.uk, or look out for my 2 books, Forces for Good and The Fourth Bottom Line. Thank you so much for listening.